Hello everyone and welcome to the November edition of Price Know-How Snippets. With me today is RMD Mike Boswell, who's going to talk about oil prices and exchange rates and what impact that could have. And before we move over to Ian to talk about feedstocks and the likely impact on polymer prices. So over to you first, Mike.
Thanks, Katherine. Starting off with oil, geopolitical tensions in the Middle East have actually pushed oil prices up in October versus September. So the average price per barrel went from 72.83 to 75.46, an increase of $2.62. The minimum price went up from 69.19 to 71.12, an increase of $1.93, and the maximum went up to 77.50. Went from 77.52 to 81.13, an increase of $3.61. But then pounds per tonne, in September it's £415 and 8 pence, and in October £435 and 90 pence, an increase of £20 and 82. I know Ian's going to come on to talk about that in terms of naphtha pricing and what's happened there. In terms of exchange rates, we're at a pretty crucial day today. It's the 5th of November, it's the US elections, so that will have a big influence on what happens going forward. But in terms of September and October, we actually saw a little bit of improvement in terms of the pound against the euros, went from 119 to 120. But against the dollar, we fell from 132 to 130. So that's going to put some upward pressure on P imports from the US. So there's this kind of backdrop of some inflationary pressures coming, both in terms of naphtha and exchange rates, but Ian's going to put that in the context now. I think of supply and demand for polyethylene and polypropylene. So Ian, over to you.
Oh, many thanks, Mike. So as Mike explained, oil prices have risen, and that's led to a rise in the price of naphtha, which has consequently led to a rise in the price of monomers in Europe. So ethylene C2 rose by €30 to €1,212.50. So 12.50. C3 propylene rose by €25 to €1,085. I think what we're seeing in polymer markets is a balance. So there's clearly an upward pressure because of the monomer increase, and a number of our supply partners have indicated that they would really like that monomer increase to be passed through. However, the balance is the fact that we still see relatively poor demand and we still see relatively strong availability. There may be some interruptions to that supply. There is, some major political decision in the offing in the US, which may affect sort of, global trade, may affect exchange rates, and may impact the amount of materials exported from the USA. But we're still seeing relatively strong supply also from the Middle East, also from the Far East. So the overall picture, I think, is one of relatively balanced. I do expect around about a rollover for this month, but we may see a little bit of tinkering either side of that, depending on who the supplier is, depending on what their position was in October. It was a holiday in Europe on Friday, and so whilst it is the 5th of the month, it's still relatively early in terms of making a decision. So more information's going to become available, I think, in the next couple of days. So please keep talking to us and we'll update you as and when we can.
Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you very much, Mike. As Ian mentioned, the picture will become clearer, we think, during the next few days, and certainly much more information will be in the full edition of Price Know-How around the middle of the month. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.